As I stood barefoot in icy water trying to fix a leaking water heater, I heard my wife upstairs laughing. If he gets electrocuted, the savings will be pretty good. My daughter asked, "Can I have his phone number then?" And the son shouted, "Don't die before the end of the match, you idiot." I finished the job, dried my feet. That night I left. 2 weeks later, they regretted everything. I never imagined I'd find myself here, typing this all out. My name's Evan, 42 years old, married to Melissa, 40, for 15 years. We have 2 kids, Ryan, our 14-year-old son, and Sophie, our 12-year-old daughter. For years, I genuinely believed our family was solid, not perfect, but strong enough to weather anything. Turns out I was wrong. Way wrong. To keep us afloat, I've been pulling 60, sometimes 70-hour work weeks for years. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. On top of that, every repair, every creaky door, leaking faucet, or busted appliance, I handled it. That was just my role. Melissa, on the other hand, worked part-time at a small boutique downtown. She always said a full-time job wasn't worth it with her qualifications. I didn't argue. I just kept my head down and did what needed doing. Last Friday night, after another brutal overtime shift, all I wanted was to collapse on the couch, throw on some mindless YouTube videos, and forget the world existed. But life had other plans. I heard it, that awful, unmistakable hissing noise from the basement. My stomach dropped. I already knew. I grabbed a flashlight and headed downstairs. Sure enough, the old water heater had finally decided to die. Water was spreading across the concrete floor, inching dangerously close to the finished section where Ryan had his gaming setup. If that area flooded, the fallout would be nuclear. It was almost midnight. No chance of getting a plumber out without paying emergency rates we couldn't afford. So, like always, I handled it myself. I shut off the water main, killed the power to the heater, and got to work. The basement floor was ice cold, a shallow pool of freezing water soaking through my socks. I didn't even have time to grab boots. I just waded in, barefoot, flashlight clenched between my teeth, tools in hand, trying to rig a temporary fix until I could replace the heater the next day. Now, here's a fun little quirk about our house. The heating vents run straight from the basement to the kitchen. Sound carries perfectly. I'd known that for years. As I kneeled there, hands cramping from the cold, desperately trying to patch the leak, I heard laughter drifting down. Melissa's voice, clear as day. "If he gets electrocuted down there, at least we'll save on the electric bill." I froze, every muscle locking up. Did I just hear that right? Then Sophie chimed in, giggling. "Can I have his phone if he dies? Mine's so old." And Ryan, shouting from the living room. "Hey, Dad. Don't die until after this match, idiot. I need you to drive me to Alex's tomorrow." The laughter that followed was loud, carefree, like it was the funniest thing in the world. They thought me dying down there, fixing their hot water, was a joke. I can't even explain what that felt like. The cold from the water didn't hurt as much as the cold that sank into my chest. I didn't scream. I didn't stomp upstairs. I didn't even let them know I heard. I just kept working. I patched the leak enough to hold, mopped up what I could, dried my freezing feet, and climbed back upstairs. Melissa was sprawled on the couch, scrolling TikTok on her phone. "All fixed?" she asked, not even glancing up. "Yeah," I muttered. "It should hold until tomorrow." "Good," she said. "Don't forget Ryan needs a ride to Alex's by noon." "Not a thank you." "Not a you okay?" "Nothing." I nodded, went to the bathroom, took a hot shower to thaw my numb feet, and crawled into bed. Melissa was already snoring beside me by the time I got there. I stared at the ceiling, feeling more alone than I had in my entire life. I'm not the impulsive type. If anything, I've always been the steady one, the rock, the fixer, the one who holds everything together without complaint. But something inside me broke that night. I kept hearing their voices in my head like a broken record. "If he gets electrocuted. Can I have his phone? Don't die yet, idiot." 15 years. 15 years of working myself to the bone, coming home and fixing everything they broke, attending Ryan's games even after 12-hour shifts, making pancakes for Sophie on Saturdays, covering every bill, every emergency, every meltdown. And that's how they saw me, as a joke, a burden, something disposable. At 3 a.m. while the house slept peacefully, I got up. I packed a bag, just essentials. Grabbed my documents from the fireproof safe. Took half the emergency cash we kept hidden away, counted it twice to be sure. Left my house keys and garage opener on the kitchen counter. Wrote a note. "Taking some time. Don't contact me." Then I walked out the front door and into the cool, silent night. No dramatics. No anger. Just gone. I checked into a cheap motel about 20 minutes away, turned off location sharing on my phone, and for the first time in years, I breathed. Really breathed. The room smelled like old carpet cleaner and despair. The sheets were scratchy. The vending machine chips I had for dinner tasted like cardboard. But lying there, staring at the cracked ceiling tiles, I realized something. Even this miserable little room was better than being somewhere I wasn't valued. Better than living with people who could joke about my death like it was an inconvenience. I didn't know what came next. Hell, I didn't even know what I wanted yet. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going back to being the family handyman they laughed about dying. Not anymore. The next morning, the first text buzzed in at exactly 7:03 a.m. Melissa. Where are you? Ryan needs to be at Alex's by noon. No, are you okay? No, I'm worried. Just straight back to business as usual. I ignored it and let the phone fall onto the nightstand. Another text followed. Then another. Then a string of them piling up like an avalanche I didn't feel like digging through. By 8:30, the messages had taken a sharper tone. Melissa. Seriously? You're just leaving without saying anything. Melissa. The water heater is leaking again. What am I supposed to do about it? Still not a single word about me. No one asking if I was hurt, if I was safe. Just frustration that their handyman and chauffeur had disappeared. Ryan's messages were next. Ryan. Dad, WTF, Mom says you're gone. I need a ride to Alex's. Sophie. Dad, Mom's really mad. When are you coming home? I stared at the screen, feeling a strange sense of detachment. It was like reading messages from strangers. At 2 p.m., the tone shifted. Melissa. Evan, this isn't funny. Come home so we can talk about whatever's bothering you. Melissa. Please at least tell me you're safe. Too little, too late. I turned the phone off, walked down to the front desk, and paid for a full week in advance. Cash. No paper trail for them to follow. Back in the room, I sat on the bed, picked at a stale bag of vending machine pretzels, and let myself really think for the first time in years. How long had it been since anyone in that house looked at me like a person, not a tool? How many late nights had I spent fixing their broken stuff after a 14-hour shift? How many birthday parties had I worked through, rain-drenched games I'd sat through just to be there for Ryan, pancakes flipped for Sophie when I could barely keep my eyes open? How many expensive skincare kits had Melissa bought while lecturing me about cutting back on essentials? The ledger of my life was painfully one-sided. It always had been. I'd just been too tired to see it. It wasn't just the basement incident that broke me. It was everything, all the little moments that chipped away at who I was until there was barely anything left. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I was just empty. And somehow that emptiness felt like a kind of peace. I spent that first night in the motel dozing on and off, waking up to the sound of trucks rattling down the highway outside. The room was ugly, beige walls, threadbare curtains, but it was mine. No one knocking on the door asking me to fix a clogged sink. No one demanding money for dance classes or tournament entry fees. No one laughing at me through heating vents. The next few days followed a predictable pattern. Messages flooded in constantly. First anger. How could you just leave us like this? You're being selfish. Then guilt trips. The kids are suffering. Don't you care about them? Then desperation. Please come home. Please. We need you. I didn't respond. Instead, I started protecting myself. First thing Monday morning, I called the bank and moved my half of the savings into a separate account. I wasn't out to ruin them financially, I wasn't vindictive. But I wasn't going to let myself get drained dry either. I left enough in our joint account to cover the essentials, mortgage, school expenses, utilities. The rest? Melissa could handle it with her part-time paycheck or figure something out. I also canceled all our joint credit cards. Since I was the primary account holder, it was my responsibility to prevent future debt disasters. The bank reissued me cards in my name only. In the process, I discovered something unsurprising but still infuriating. Melissa had racked up nearly $400 in boutique shopping sprees just last week after I left. So much for cutting back. The fallout started hitting them by the end of the first week. The water heater finally gave up completely. Melissa had to call an emergency plumber, $650 for what would have cost me maybe $150 and a few hours of my time. Ryan missed his tournament because Melissa couldn't figure out how to reset the power surge that fried his PC. The kitchen sink clogged. The lawn went unmowed. Bills started bouncing because automatic payments were no longer automatic. It was chaos. I imagined them standing there, looking at each other, realizing for the first time how much invisible work I had been doing. How many fires I had been putting out daily without so much as a thank you. I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. Then came the escalation. One afternoon, while I was grabbing some terrible motel coffee from the lobby, Melissa showed up. At my job. She stormed in, red-faced, shrieking about financial abuse, about abandonment, about destroying the family. I stayed calm. I led her outside, pulled out my phone, and hit play. See, what Melissa didn't know was that a few days before the basement incident, I'd already suspected something was wrong. So I'd left an old phone recording in the basement while I worked on a leaking pipe. What it picked up was brutal. Melissa mocking me to the kids. Ryan calling me a try-hard loser. Sophie laughing along like it was the coolest thing to do. Melissa joking about how dumb I was for not realizing how much money she spent on herself. I let her listen to every second of it. First, she tried to deny it. Said I must have edited the recording. Then she switched tactics. It was taken out of context. We were just joking around. I asked her one simple question. Would you joke like that if it was your mother? Your best friend? Your boss? She didn't have an answer. She just stood there, tears filling her eyes, watching me walk back inside without another word. That night, lying on the stiff motel bed, I finally allowed myself to smile. Not out of spite, not because I wanted revenge, but because for once I had chosen myself. I had walked away before they broke me completely, and for the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was free. A few days after Melissa's meltdown at my workplace, the texts started changing. No more screaming, no more threats. Instead, a simple message. Melissa, please, can we meet? Not to fight. The kids need to see you. We all have things we want to say. At first, I wanted to ignore it. Part of me felt like there was nothing left to say. But another part, the part that still remembered Saturday mornings making pancakes with Sophie, the late nights helping Ryan troubleshoot his games, the quiet moments with Melissa before the world crushed us. That part wasn't ready to slam the door shut completely. 15 years doesn't just disappear. I agreed, but on my terms. Neutral ground, no screaming matches at the house. Public place, somewhere quiet. The coffee shop near the library, the one with the private corner booths where no one would overhear. And one more thing. I told Melissa I'd be recording the conversation. Non-negotiable. Maybe it sounded paranoid. I didn't care. I needed a record, something real to hold on to if things went sideways again. She agreed. No fight. No argument. That worried me more than if she'd screamed. When I walked into the coffee shop that afternoon, I almost didn't recognize them. Not physically, they looked the same, but their energy was different. Ryan wasn't glued to his phone for once. Sophie's eyes were puffy, like she'd been crying. Melissa looked broken in a way I'd never seen. Not angry, not haughty, just exhausted. The same bone-deep exhaustion I'd lived with for years. I sat down across from them without a word. I had planned a whole speech. Cool, detached, surgically cutting. Instead, my throat tightened, and I just stared at them, waiting. Ryan spoke first. That surprised me. My son, who barely acknowledged me even when I was fixing his life behind the scenes, was the first to talk. He mumbled at first, fiddling with the strings on his hoodie, eyes locked on the table. But then he said something that hit me harder than any screaming ever could. I tried fixing the garage door last week, he said. Watched a bunch of YouTube videos. Thought it looked easy. He held up his hand, wrapped in bandages. Ended up cutting myself. Had to get stitches. He looked up at me then, eyes brimming with something I hadn't seen in years. Shame. I didn't get it before, he said. How much you did. I thought it was easy. I thought you were just whatever. But it's not. Silence. Sophie slid something across the table toward me. A notebook. I opened it. Inside, in her messy 12-year-old handwriting, was a list. Things Dad does that nobody notices. Page after page. Fixes loose chairs. Checks windows before bed. Makes sure smoke detectors work. Buys the cereal we like without asking. Makes pancakes even when he's tired. I closed the notebook gently, swallowing the lump in my throat. Then it was Melissa's turn. She looked terrible. No makeup. hair pulled into a messy bun, clothes wrinkled like she hadn't bothered to change after work. "I got a full-time job," she said, "at a discount store. Not great pay, long hours. Customers are awful sometimes." She laughed, a short, brittle sound. I thought it would be easy. Just like you made it look all these years." She went on, voice shaking. "The water heater broke again. Had to call the plumber. The dishwasher's leaking. Internet spotty. Ryan missed another tournament because the router kept cutting out. The mower won't start. The lawn looks like a jungle. The bathroom sink is dripping. Smoke alarm beeps all night." She listed problem after problem, piling up like bricks on a crumbling foundation. "I thought you were just overreacting," she whispered. "I didn't realize how much you were carrying. How much we all just expected you to do without ever saying thank you." She wiped her eyes, took a shaky breath. "I'm sorry. No defenses. No excuses. No blame. Just sorry." I sat there for a long moment, feeling everything and nothing all at once. When I finally spoke, my voice was calm, steady. "If, and it's a big if, we're gonna fix this, there have to be changes. Real ones. Not promises. Not 2 weeks of good behavior and back to normal." They all nodded. Good. Because I wasn't negotiating. I laid out my terms. 1. Family counseling every week. No skipping. No excuses. 2. Ryan gets a weekend job to pay for his own gaming stuff. 3. Melissa must maintain full-time employment. No more excuses about too stressful or not worth it. 4. Chore schedules for everyone, including home maintenance training for both kids. 5. Joint financial transparency, no secret spending. Every major purchase discussed openly. 6. Written agreements signed by everyone acknowledging all the above. I expected pushback, excuses, tears. Instead, they nodded. Melissa even looked relieved, like having clear expectations was a weight lifted, not added. Maybe she realized she needed structure as much as I did. After the meeting, I didn't move back in. Not yet. Words were cheap. I needed to see real, lasting change, not just a performance. I checked back into my motel. Still smelled like burnt microwave popcorn, but it felt a little less like prison and a little more like sanctuary. Over the next few weeks, I watched from a distance. Ryan got a part-time job bagging groceries. Melissa showed up to her shifts even when she was exhausted. Sophie stuck to her chore chart, missing a few days here and there, but trying. We started family therapy. It wasn't easy. The first few sessions were brutal. Ryan admitted he was embarrassed by me sometimes, thought I was cringe, trying to bond with him over games. Sophie confessed she'd mimicked Melissa and Ryan's behavior because she thought it was what families did. Melissa faced some ugly truths about how she'd disrespected me and modeled that disrespect to the kids. No one was perfect. There were setbacks, tense moments, old habits creeping back. But for the first time in a long time, they were trying. Really trying. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to hope. 2 months after that coffee shop meeting, something shifted. It wasn't a grand moment. There was no swelling music or tearful embraces. Just slow, steady, almost invisible change, the kind that doesn't announce itself but builds brick by brick, day by day. Melissa stayed at her full-time job. It wasn't glamorous, retail never is, but she stuck it out. She learned how to juggle shifts, homework help, cooking real meals instead of ordering takeout every night. She opened a budgeting app on her laptop and actually used it, something I had begged her to do for years. Ryan kept his grocery store job. He grumbled about it. Sure, he's a teenager, but he showed up. Every Saturday morning, he bagged groceries, stocked shelves, helped old ladies carry their bags to the car. Sophie kept her room clean. Not perfectly, she was 12 after all, but she tried. She even started setting the dinner table without being asked, something so small it made my chest ache when I saw it. Family counseling continued. It was messy, painful, awkward. We argued. We cried. We unpacked years of resentment that none of us had the tools to deal with before. But we didn't quit. And that was new. I didn't rush back into the house. I stayed cautious, kept my motel room for a while longer. Watched. Waited. I needed to be sure this wasn't just a phase, a temporary guilt trip wearing off. The final turning point came on a rainy Saturday afternoon. Melissa called, not demanding, not frantic. Just tired. The fridge died, she said. We lost a full load of groceries. I don't know what to do. Part of me wanted to say, not my problem. Old anger flared in my gut. But another part, the part that still loved my family, still believed maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild, told me to listen. I went over. The house looked different. Lived in. Messy, yes, there were dishes in the sink, laundry piles on the stairs, but also signs that people were trying. Ryan met me at the door. He didn't scowl or roll his eyes. Instead, he said, I tried to fix it. I even looked up videos. In the kitchen, he had tools spread out, a YouTube tutorial paused on the tablet. He'd figured out the issue, clogged condenser coils, but didn't know how to fix it safely. Instead of pushing him aside like I might have before, I knelt down and showed him. Step by step. And when the fridge finally hummed back to life, the smile on Ryan's face wasn't about winning some game or leveling up. It was pride. Real pride. Not just in fixing something, but in doing it himself with a little guidance. I stayed for dinner that night. Melissa cooked spaghetti, simple but homemade, and we sat around the table like a real family. We talked. Not just about logistics or complaints or who needed a ride where. About real things. It felt fragile. Tentative. But it was a start. A few weeks later, I officially moved back in. Not to the old dynamic where I was the silent workhorse. Not to being invisible. But to a new, carefully built structure where everyone carried some weight. We had a whiteboard in the kitchen now. Weekly chores. Maintenance checklists. Budget meetings once a month. It wasn't perfect. Ryan still had flashes of teenage attitude. Sophie still forgot to take out the trash sometimes. Melissa and I still stumbled over old resentments, old patterns. But when we did, we talked about it. Really talked. And then we fixed it together. One morning, a few weeks after moving back, I found a note next to my coffee mug. It wasn't anything dramatic. No long apology letter. No emotional confession. Just a sticky note in Melissa's handwriting. Water bills on the desk. I already paid half from my account. Thanks for fixing the toilet yesterday. Simple. Small. But it meant everything. It wasn't about the money or the toilet. It was about respect. Acknowledgement. Partnership. Looking back now, I realized something important. This wasn't just about them learning to appreciate me. It was about me learning to appreciate myself enough to demand better. For years, I thought love meant endless sacrifice, silent suffering. That being a good husband, a good father, meant giving everything and expecting nothing. I was wrong. Real love isn't invisible. It isn't unappreciated. It isn't one person carrying the world while everyone else coasts. Real love shows up. Real love says thank you. Real love meets you halfway. Is everything perfect now? No. But it's real. It's honest. And it's worth fighting for. Sometimes people don't realize what they have until it's gone. And sometimes, just sometimes, they get a second chance. But only if they're willing to earn it. My family had to lose me to understand that. And I had to walk away to remember it myself. Now we're building something new. Together. Brick by brick. Day by day. And for the first time in a very, very long time, I feel like I'm finally home.